Jurassic Park. It's been 25 years since the original film hit theaters and changed the face of blockbuster cinema forever. Universal Pictures patented, packaged, slapped the name on 4 sequels, a comic book series, countless merchandise, and sold it. And don't think that the world of video games was left out of that chaos. There were action games, platform games, point-and-click adventure games, arcade games, fighting games, educational games, build-your-own-park games, games I can't get my hands on, games I keep finding everywhere.
That's chaos theory.
Now, there are so many Jurassic Park games that came out throughout the years that it'll be impossible to cover them all in the length of one video, so I'm just gonna go through the first ones that came out because technically they're also celebrating the 25th anniversary this year and they deserve to be looked into. So hold on to your butts, we're diving right into the first Jurassic Park game ever made for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Why hello there, how are you doing today? Aw, why aren't you the cutest little T-Rex?
You alright, man?
Now, to be fair, this title screen actually looks great for NES standards. The in-game graphics, aside from the grass color that makes me want to vomit, are pretty decent. Bright and colorful with exaggerated cartoon designs that complement it. It works for the most part, except who exactly are you supposed to be playing as here? Indiana Jones? The manual says it's supposed to be Alan Grant, but you would have no idea unless you've read it. Also, in what part of the movie did Dr. Grant grab a bazooka and start blasting the f*** out of all the dinosaurs in the park with rabbit pellets? He eradicates them off the face of the earth with their own little contained mushroom cloud. Gameplay-wise, your overall goal is to get from one point of the map to the other, but to do that you need to open the security doors using a computer. How do you get to the computer? You need a key card. But you don't just find the key card, no, you have to do John Hammond's busy work and stop all unauthorized breeding by collecting or destroying dinosaur eggs. How collecting eggs gets you a key card in the first place, I have no idea. I do have to say though, that would be convenient. Say if I lost my ID or something, all I have to do is just find 3 eggs, destroy them, and I would get a new one. Then there's also some bullshit with these question mark boxes. According to the manual, there should be bonuses in most of them like health and extra life and extra continue, but half the time they just explode in my face. Ah! Damn! Oh, please don't explode, please don't explode, please don't explode. Shit! In most good games, a fair challenge means that it's your fault that you got hurt or got a game over, but here it's just trial and error. There's really no game to it, it's just guessing and failing 75% of the time. In the end, your life is in the game's hands and it has butterfingers. Also, one thing worth noting for all of these games, and not just this one, is that none of them include the famous John Williams score from the film. However, the music made specifically for these games aren't too bad, some even downright catchy. There was a version of this game for Game Boy that was basically a watered down version of the same game. But I have to say, this is one of the better ports I've seen on the Game Boy. It's fun to play, the audio and sound effects are in high quality, and the controls are honestly an improvement as you can face any direction almost instantly. Both versions even have the same weird element where you walk faster diagonally than you do straight. Overall, I recommend the NES version for the full experience, but the Game Boy version if you want to have a more fun experience. But if you want to turn up the frustration scale a little more, we have the Super Nintendo version.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Essentially, this is a 16-bit improvement of the NES version with a few differences. One of which is that it's way f***ing harder. The interior portions of this game are also completely different from the NES version, as they're now in a first-person view. Kinda cool for the SNES, but the movement is very stiff, and aiming your weapon is a pain in the ass. This isn't like Doom or Wolfenstein where an enemy can just be on the screen in order for you to hit it, no. In this game, they have to be in the dead center of the screen in order for you to make a hit. It's also a lot harder to navigate around in this version. In the NES version, you can easily figure out how to get from point A to point B through trial and error, but it was a lot easier and more simplistic. Here, I have no idea where I'm supposed to go because I can go pretty far on any path until I reach a dead end. The interiors are worse because every single room looks the same. Ah, crap, now I have to go all the way to the other side of the map to get this key card. But in hindsight, these are just nitpicks compared to the real flaw of this game. That being that there is no possible way to save it, forcing you to complete this game in one sitting.
Spared no expense.
But I guess still for the time, and especially as a movie license game, it's not terrible, but it really hasn't aged well thanks to some design choices that can be increasingly frustrating.
After careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park.
Alright, so apparently waiting for the next movie to come out wasn't an option, so now we're moving on to Jurassic Park 2, The Chaos Continues. Probably one of the cheesiest and greatest sequel titles ever conceived. Holy shit, there's actually a story to this one. So apparently after the incident in the first movie, the competitor of InGen called Biosyn, we gotta love these stupid names, wants to take advantage of nobody being at the island and take over the park. And you could tell they're evil by the way their CEO menacingly overlooks the city like he's Kingpin or something and exclaims,
"I will have control of Jurassic Park."
So in response, John Hammond sends a highly trained and professional team to take back what's rightfully his. Until they're all killed off screen, and then he just sends Alan Grant instead. Wait, what?
Alan!
Okay, one, why Grant? The manual says it's because of his familiar with the island, which, fair enough, is a huge plus. But that doesn't mean jack when you're going up against an army of mercenaries. Who does Hammond think he is, f***ing Rambo? Two, is it just me, or does that look nothing like Alan Grant? 3, I still can't fathom the fact that Alan Grant is going around with a machine gun killing everything in sight. And 4, this game sucks. Much like the other game, this is pretty much a memory test. You have to know ahead of time where every enemy is and the best way to avoid them. Like there, I just moved into a new area only to be immediately pounced by a raptor. This game is filled with these kinds of moments, and even on the easy setting, these attacks still take away a good amount of health. And no matter how far you get into each level, if you die once, you start the entire level over again. There are no checkpoints. Hell, you don't even have to die to lose. If you kill too many dinosaurs, you fail the level and have to redo it. Yeah, because I feel so bad for defending myself against cute, harmless little animals like this.
Spared no expense.
Thankfully though, they kind of learned their lesson from the last game as you can select which level you want to play, kind of like in Mega Man, but at this point, who cares? I'm already frustrated enough thanks to the first game, now I have to deal with this bullshit? No thanks. There was a Game Boy version also of Chaos Continues, and again, it's way more fun to play than the console version. It still has some surprise attacks, sure, but they're not as frequent, and they're a lot easier to avoid. And the game itself is a lot easier to play through. It's challenging and frustrating to the point where you want to keep playing instead of throwing your controller across the room. Granted, if you threw this controller across the room, you would have to buy a whole nother Game Boy, but I digress. That's all for the Nintendo versions. Let's see how the competition's doing with the Sega versions.
She doesn't even have Sega. She's such a troglodyte.
Oh, fuck, not this again. What was that? Is the T-Rex saying Sega? Okay, that's pretty awesome. The game itself opens up with the cutscene that probably would have given kids nightmares back in the day, but now, honestly, the T-Rex just looks silly. Yes? The game gives you a choice to play as Dr. Grant trying to restore power to the park, or a velociraptor chasing after him. Grant has a variety of items to use, but the control's stiff, while the raptor only has 2 attacks but is incredibly fast. But, however, this can make jumping around with the raptor a little bit more difficult. The levels are straightforward and fun to play. They even use the river rapid scene from the novel, which is a very nice touch. The graphics are really good for Sega Genesis, but sometimes, especially in the earlier levels, it can be a little hard to differentiate what's background and stuff you can interact with. These vines, for example, are so dark that they blend into the background and are barely noticeable. I do like how whenever the T-Rex shows up in the actual game, he just pokes his head out and he has no idea what the hell's going on. Overall, not a bad game for Jurassic Park fans, I recommend it. But just like the Super Nintendo version, this Sega game also has its own sequel, Jurassic Park Rampage Edition. Oh my god, that's terrifying. If you thought the T-Rex cutscene in the last game were scary, this makes it look like a damn Care Bear. So when you start the game, you get a weird little radar screen, I don't even know what it means. And the next thing I know, I see Dr. Grant coming in flying on a pterosaur shooting at everything in sight. What the hell is everyone's obsession with turning Alan Grant into a bloodthirsty psychopath? I mean, look at this pandemonium. I'm electrocuting soldiers to a crisp, pumping raptors full of lead, tearing compies to shreds, fighting a T-Rex in hell. Everything in this game is absurd, and you know what? It's kind of awesome. The title of this one doesn't lie. Literally everything in this game goes on a rampage. The Gallimimus, the T-Rex, the raptors, Grant. Man, maybe this was the potential chaos Malcolm was warning us about. Oh, by the way, the butterflies explode when you eat them. Just thought you should know. But believe it or not, that's not the craziest thing this game has to offer. In fact, it's actually not even in the game itself. It's the story that's given to you in the manual. According to this game takes place immediately after the first film. You know, when Grant, Dr. Sadler, Malcolm, Hammond, and the kids are all in the helicopter having that sweet moment. Yeah, but apparently what you didn't know is that immediately after that, Grant sees another helicopter going back to the island, fearing that it's more scientists trying to collect dino DNA before the park is destroyed, because that's happening. But, quote, as Grant seizes the helicopter radio to warn the Costa Rican military, he has to fight off the pilot who attempts to stop him. In the ensuing conflict, the copter goes down, and Grant is the only one that survives. I'm sorry, did this f***ing manual just pull an Alien 3 on us?
That's chaos theory.
No wonder why Grant's going all John Wick on everyone. He's pretty much just cracked after incidentally killing off the entire surviving cast of the film. As for the game itself, overall, it's very much like the first Sega Genesis game, but with some improved controls, brighter graphics, and a much faster pace to match the batshit crazy tone it's going for. It's easy to see that after the success of the first game, the developers just wanted to have as much fun as possible with over-the-top dinosaur action, and they delivered. And honestly, who can blame them? The film that they based these games off of sparked that interest for an entire generation, and if the number of these games can tell you anything, it's that interest shows no sign of slowing down. From the comfort of your own homes, to movie theaters, to arcades, to the bindings of a book, to new scientific discoveries that wouldn't have happened without this series. The Jurassic Park franchise, at its best, continues strong to this day in capturing the imaginations of audiences everywhere. Hey dude, mind if I join in? Hop on. Alright. My name is John, and I'll see you next time.